Welcome to my world history notes. I'm reading from a book I wrote to teach homeschoolers called A Bible Believer Looks at World History. And I'm going to discuss, you can read this, you can purchase this book on lulu.com, amazon.com, or at the Bible Baptist bookstore, or just follow me on here. And today I'm going to just continue my discussion. So bear with me here. It's in this general period of time that we've been talking about that the Aryan migrations and invasions of Dravidian India are said to begin. The Dravidian are the non-European inhabitants of India, non-Indo-European inhabitants of India, who now occupy the southern portion and Sri Lanka, which formerly was known as Ceylon. The Aryan invaders were closely related to Persians or Iranians today with regard to language. Very little is known of the warfare between the invaders and the dark-skinned early inhabitants, but it was the synthesis of the Aryan and the Dravidian that produced the new Hindu civilization after 1400 BC, according to traditional historians. It can be added that migration into South America and Oceania or the Pacific Islands begins in this time frame with a very limited historical record consisting of controversially dated ruins, human remains, pottery, and folklore. It will be a few hundred years before there is an historical record which we can study clearly. Australia will remain in the Stone Age until the European invasion and colonization thousands of years later. It is by Joseph's position of power in Egypt that the family of Jacob are able to survive yet another famine by taking up residence there. It is interesting also to note that Genesis begins with God, traces nearly half of human history, and ends with a coffin in Egypt, a land obsessed with death and the afterlife. Petrie believed that they came into Egypt around 1650 BC and left around 1220 BC. Durant defers to him and says, in rejection of the biblical record, that we don't know if they entered as free men or slaves, and like Westcott and Hort, the fathers of the modern Bible translation movement, believe that Moses was a mythical figure. Petrie suggests that they follow the path of the Hyksos, Egypt's Semitic invaders. Usher has Jacob's family moving to Egypt in 1706 BC, using the strict biblical record. Jones, who gives the date of the Egyptian sojourn of 1780 to 1546 BC, notes that the period under discussion is one of great obscurity in Egyptian history. After studying the works of L. Wood, J. Davis, M. Unger, Petrie, Breasted, Erdmans, H. Riley, Gardner, Hall, Harrison, W. F. Albright, Bunsen, J. Free, Sir J. Gardner Wilkinson, and S. Schultz, all noted Egyptologists and Bible scholars, and many quoted by everyone from Hislop to Durant, concludes that Joseph rose to prominence under a Hyksos king, and Moses led the Jews out of Egypt under a native Egyptian king, who would not have been so favorably disposed toward them. The argument for a late sojourn in Exodus, based on the statement that they built the treasure cities of Ramses, who did not rule until the 19th dynasty, according to some, is irrelevant in light of the use of the name Ramses before any Ramses ruled in a burial painting of Amenhotep III of the 18th dynasty, at least 60 years before the rule of any Ramses. In fact, Amosis, 16th century founder of the 18th dynasty, bore the name of Ramses, meaning son of Ra, probably as a throne name and perhaps representing a term much like the son of God, as Ra was the principal god of the Egyptians, the S-U-N. The residence of the family of Jacob in Egypt and the subsequent events of the story of the Exodus are hotly contested among traditional historians. Some regard the entire thing as a myth, while others say there's no evidence either for or against. I've even read where some conjecture that it was the Jews who built the pyramids, even though these structures are not mentioned by name in the scriptures. Moses' identity in secular history is also one of debate and challenge. You will read some that say that the Egyptian woman who adopted the baby in the Ark of Bulrushes was the woman who eventually became Pharaoh herself, Hatshepsut. Not surprisingly, many archaeologists claim Moses never existed. The fathers, quote, of all modern Bible versions, the Anglican clerics, Westcott and Hort, also did not believe that Moses was anything but a mythological character. Moses is even thought of by some to be an alternate name for the Egyptian pharaoh who commanded the worship of one god, Aton, the man who supposedly introduced monotheism or the belief in one god to the Egyptians, Akhenaten. Nevertheless, there are so many gaps in our knowledge of ancient Egypt that basing your belief on the existence of a biblical personage on whether or not some clue has been unearthed in an archaeological dig yet is foolish to say the least and short-sighted at best. Belief in the biblical record is much more certain and clear than relying on what has been found or will be found in an ancient, much robbed tomb on an ancient garbage heap. Sooner or later, if you continue your education, you will run into such works by unbelievers as Sigmund Freud's Moses and Monotheism, designed to overthrow your faith. Freud will be mentioned in this course much later as one of the destroyers of Western civilization, but that is for much later. And we're going to double down on Moses next time, and then we'll continue. And I really appreciate it that you watch this, listen to this. I hope it spurs you to study and do some digging. Have a good day.